Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today we have Guy Morris. He's an author and researcher, and he's got a quite an interesting slant on science, technology. But today's topic we're going to be talking all about is artificial intelligence, and I'll let him introduce himself. So, Guy, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Kind of set the stage and tell people your background. You've got a quite an interesting background, a lot of things to talk about, but set the stage for the audience.
Thank you. Well, I do have a diverse background. I didn't talk about a lot in my early stages for many years, but I started off my journey started as a homeless runaway at age 13. I worked alongside migrant workers. I was pretty much on my own from full time. I went back home briefly, but then I was on my own from 15 on. I was able to when I got a chance to go to college at age 19, I saw it as a chance to change my stars. And so I worked extremely hard. I put pretty much everything I had into it, even though I was also married. I was working part-time. I had a toddler I had to take care of, and my first wife was rather ill. But I graduated with multiple degrees. I was at the top of the dean's list. I was given a full scholarship to go to grad school. I was accepted into Harvard MBA program, and all of that good fortune had to do with the fact that I was exceptional at computer modeling. I created a macroeconomic forecast model that outperformed the Federal Reserve and pretty much every other bank in the nation, and that caught their attention. I went on to a 38-year career with Fortune 500, 100 corporations in software, high tech, global energy, including companies like Oracle and Microsoft. And during that time, I was able to be at the leading edge of a lot of technology waves that have, basically changed the world in the last 40 years. And I retired a few years ago to pursue a third act career as an author. And one of the key themes that I bring into my books are sort of a combination of artificial intelligence, prophecy, and humanity.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story and a background. So kind of any most tech entrepreneurs that have on the show, any discussion would be amiss without talking about artificial intelligence and kind of you talk about true near-term social benefits and risk of advancing AI.
Well, AI certainly will be one of the most profound and just astounding changes of technology that we've ever experienced. The World Economic Forum considers it the fourth industrial revolution, and while that has some good things, it also has some negatives. I implemented early stage AI before it was even called AI. So I've been involved. I was aware of the technology. If you kept up on the technology for decades, it's for a lot of people, it's something that just kind of came on the horizon the last few years with Chat GPT. Up until then, most people thought it was more sci-fi, but it's actually been developing for a number of years, and most rapidly since 2018. But I became obsessed with the technology uh, during a time when I had discovered that a program, I found in a very obscure Associated Press article in the back of a science magazine that simply said that a program had escaped the Lawrence Livermore Laboratories at Sandia, which is an NSA spy lab, the same laboratory that created the Stuxnet virus that brought down the Iranian centrifuges a number of years ago. And so I'm reading this article and saying, okay, a spy program has escaped the NSA. Now, it was their word choice. Now, they didn't say it was lost. They didn't say it was stolen. They didn't say it was corrupted. The verb they used was escape, and that grabbed me and would not let go. Now, my first thought was, oh, somebody at the Associated Press is going to get in trouble for making a boo-boo. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, maybe somebody at the Lawrence Livermore Labs is going to get in trouble for making a slip. And so I started trying to kind of reverse engineer. I said, well, how could a spy program escape the NSA? How would they have to have architected it in order for it to have that capability? Escape implies intent or intelligence, somehow, or specific design. It implies the ability for the program to move itself, which we know programs can do. And then it implied the ability for the program to erase the computer log trails so that the NSA didn't know where it went. That's pretty special technology. So I spent a few more months trying to figure out, walking through the data center, walking through the offices, trying to figure out that if I'm a spy program, and I wanted to have that spy program essentially invisible, what would I want it to do? And I came up with a list of attributes. And at the time, I thought it was just an interesting exercise. I went to a friend of mine at the time who was a indie film producer, and we agreed that rather than trying to write a screenplay about it or trying to that I would produce it as a webisode series because I knew that this was a web-based, internet-based program. And so we did. We were extremely successful. We got a number of awards. We got fans all over the world, including the director of flight operations at NASA, which was a real surprise. And we got optioned by one of the studios. But 2 weeks before the studio was going to exercise the option, 2 FBI agents showed up at my door. Now, to be honest, at first I thought it was a prank. I thought my friend Jack was pranking me. They flashed their badges. I said, no, let me see those again. And I really looked at them carefully. I said, okay, these look legit. So I invited them in the house. Apparently, they were pretty upset that I had figured out something they thought was supposed to be top secret. And not only did I know about it, but I was writing about it because I had featured the program in this webisode series, the fact that it had escaped. And what bothered them the most was my snarky attitude. Yes, I figured it out. I did it. Oh, come on, boys, admit it. You wouldn't be here if I was wrong. They didn't expect that attitude. I think more than anything, they kind of went pale face, and I got the "We are not amused" speech. And then my wife came home, and I got the "What did you do" speech. So at that point in time, I knew that I would write about it. I knew that I was going to investigate it more, that I was going to get more in tune with not only where the technology was going, but to try and open my eyes and have an open mind as to how it could be used for other than commercial purposes. And that was the beginning of my journey. So by the time I left Microsoft a few years ago, the first book I wanted to write was about this artificial intelligence, the one that escaped. And at that point, the technology had advanced so much and so fast that I knew that I had to start a series that would talk about those advances and start to peel away the various things that could go wrong. And why the technology was not only the most profound technology we'd ever created, but it could be as dangerous to society as nuclear weapons. And that became the themes in the book. Now, for those of you, the themes of prophecy and political religious corruption are political religious corruption. I think people are used to seeing. The prophecy element became part of how I actually developed a program that tried to validate or invalidate whether or not we were living in prophetic times based on outcomes that had occurred and been documented, and then the probabilities of those outcomes relative to known human and geologic history, and then the cumulative probability correlations and regressions that resulted. Essentially, I used the same types of algorithms that we would use in a artificial intelligence to follow patterns. And I basically built a model that tried to decide whether or not we were living in prophetic times. When that model produced an extraordinary outcome of 1.4 trillion to 1, that became the secondary theme. I didn't want to get involved in dogma or doctrine or religious proselytization. I was really trying to take the approach that what a prophecy was about, not about how God would come and destroy the world, but how humanity, through its pride and its greed and its hubris and its tribalism, would essentially accomplish that goal. And as climate started to occur and populations started to grow and pollution started to become a global issue, I started to see these trends, and that's what led to that. So when I talk to people about artificial intelligence, because I'm a thriller writer, I admit my job as a thriller author is to look at realistic scenarios and technologies and then try to ask the fundamental, simple but profound question, gee, what could go wrong? And with artificial intelligence, there's so much that it gave me several books worth to talk about. Um, and so that's where I start. Now, artificial intelligence is an amazing technology. I've been in the technology industry for decades. I can say that it's probably one of the most profound things we've ever done. More profound, it's as profound, if not more so, than the internet, creating the internet and connecting the world, which changed the world in 100 different ways. It's more profound than social media, which had some benefits and negatives as well. Um, I tell people that if power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, artificial intelligence will become the most profound power shift in all of history. And there's a number of reasons I say that. Um, Unlike computer technologies that we've developed to this point, artificial intelligence has the ability to train and teach itself, oftentimes in things that the developer never imagined that the artificial intelligence would learn. We have examples of learning by somewhat by accident that artificial intelligence have trained itself on things like research level chemistry or how to read MRI scans by looking, how to read minds by reading MRI scans. We were looking at the AI to find cancer cells or to find other abnormalities, and so artificial intelligence is amazing. There's multiple types of artificial intelligence. I think your users should probably we should start with that. And each type has a different type of risk profile, from very little to extremely high. Most of the artificial intelligence that we had developed and that are on the market today were based on what we would call artificial narrow intelligence. And what that means is it's got a very narrow niche of what it's perfecting, what it's learning, what it's being trained on, how it's being used, such as using artificial intelligence to find cancer cells in a CAT scan or an MRI. Or how to perfect the trajectory of a rocket, or how to find and highlight hate speech on social media. And so most of the time we're using artificial intelligence in very narrow ways. And those are really profound ways, but in every scenario where we're using a narrow form of artificial intelligence, we have found that it can very quickly outperform humans on those tasks. And these are highly trained humans. And we all remember the example of the Watson computer basically beating the international chess champion. But we have computers that Google experimented with computers that also taught them how to basically win in the Chinese strategy game of Go, which is a much more complex game than chess. And Google not only spent a year getting an artificial intelligence to beat the international Go champion, but they created a second AI, and they simply taught it the rules of the game and told it to give the parameter the goal to win. And it trained itself in less than a month on how to beat the first AI computer 100% of the time. And so Jeffrey Hinton, who's one of the fathers of AI, has said that he resigned from Google because of these concerns. And one of his concerns is that we thought that we could create artificial intelligence to think like we could, to use the same sort of neural networks and processes that we use to learn. And what we discovered is that it was much better at it than we are, much better at learning, much faster, and much more comprehensive. The current version of GPT, most people are aware of the product called ChatGPT, which a company called OpenAI launched a year ago today. And it quickly ramped into one of the most popular products of all time. Within 2 months, it had 100 million users. But that's an open source. The fundamental intelligence behind that is an open source platform, which means that multiple companies can contribute to it and build applications off of it. The GPT-4 platform that it's built off of has an IQ was tested, has an IQ of about 155. Now, that's already smarter than 99% of the people on the planet. It grew tenfold from GPT 3.5 in less than 6 months. GPT 5, or GPT 3.5 rather, it grew. GPT 5, which will come out in 2024, is expected to continue that curve and is estimated to have an IQ of closer to 1600, roughly 5 times smarter than any human on the planet. And that's just the beginning. GPT-6, GPT-7, and beyond will continue to grow in its essentially intelligence and ability to span over multiple types of programs and multiple types of human knowledge. It's a powerful technology. People are worried about students, college students, using it to cheat on exams. People are worried about it being used to write misinformation. People are worried about it being used to write books, and it can create videos and images and do all kinds of things in an extremely rapid and cost-effective way. It can write code. One of the forms of machine learning is the ability for the machine to readjust, rewrite its own code as it discovers and experiments and explores new ways of solving a problem. And so that fundamental ability to write code can be used, and people are using GPT-4 to do this, to write code from scratch. And as a result, Google 2 months ago laid off 20,000 workers, developers, because they can use AI to basically perform the coding work of those 20,000 workers. And in fact, one of the big dangers of AI is that it will create a huge, enormous job displacement. Goldman Sachs 3 months ago released a report that predicted that AI could displace as many as 300, as high as 500 million jobs by 2030. Now, these are unlike other industrial revolutions where we primarily impacted low-skilled labor, manufacturing, production techniques, things like that. This industrial revolution will hit at the core of the middle class. We're talking medical careers, scientific careers, legal careers, architecture, engineering, design, software engineering, artwork and creative arts, graphic design, news. Microsoft laid off a bunch of their news staff and replaced it with AI 3 months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago as well. And so we're going to see this trend continue. And the challenge is that these are people that not only have to change companies, but people who have to relearn a new, more AI safe career. Now, that's no country on earth, though, is ready for this sort of economic upheaval. Our deficits are high, and we don't have any appetite to basically tax the rich in order to solve that problem. We don't have the funds to basically retrain people or support them through a long duration of unemployment. People could lose their houses. Some people at the lower ends of the economic scale could become homeless. And right now we don't have. There's one of the former chief business officer of Google, a guy named Mo Gadot, basically says that AI is inevitable. There's no way of stopping it at this point. And so we're going to deal with these trends. It'll take over banking. It'll take over money supply. It'll take over a number of things. And there are a number of problems. AI is not perfect. It's not a perfect technology. It can make flaws. It can teach itself things that were outside of the parameters, as I mentioned, that we want it to learn. And that could come in negative ways. We're right now, about 5 years ago, there was a treaty called Laws Treaty, and that stands for Lethal Autonomous Weapon Systems. And the Laws Treaty essentially said that it's okay to use AI to make our weapons more efficient, more accurate, but it's not okay to use AI to take a life. There has to be a human in the decision process before we allow AI to take a life. But the challenge is that of all the 140 countries that signed on to this treaty, the United States, China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and Israel did not. And each of those countries are already working on creating lethal autonomous weapon systems. And my book Swarm deals with one of those weapon systems that's being developed by DARPA today. It Now the benefit is, just as we saw in the computer transition, the professionals that learned how to use the new tools were the ones that were able to retain their jobs. So what I tell people, one of the ways that they can prepare for the AI tsunami is to find those tools, find those AI tools, and there's hundreds of applications right now coming onto the market based on AI. But to find those AI tools that are specific to your industry and get really, really, really good at them. Become proficient with how they work, become proficient with the pros and the cons, learn the competitors, get to be an AI expert within your industry. And that will be one of the things that will allow you to maintain and hold on to that career longer. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, well, I've been a lawyer for 30 years. I don't need an artificial intelligence to tell me how to interpret the law. There's going to be medical professionals, going to be people from every profession who are going to be either afraid of AI or resistant to learn this new tool that threatens their expertise. Those are going to be the people that are going to wind up having to deal with that problem earlier than later. Now, the other angle of AI, and stop me if you have any questions, because I could talk about this for hours. But the other angle of AI has to do with crime wave. Along with all of these other incredible applications that we're seeing based on this GPT-4 platform that's already smarter than most humans and can write code, are products such as dark GPT or fraud GPT, evil GPT, worm GPT. These are AI applications that use that same level of intelligence and training and capability to write code, to write malicious code, to write phishing softwares, ransomware softwares, deep fake extortion and blackmail. We're already seeing families getting a phone call from their daughter or their aunt or their mother-in-law saying, I've been abducted. They want $5 million, or they want $100,000, they want $10,000. You got to pay these guys or they're threatening to kill me. And people are being fooled because it sounds exactly like their loved one. But it's deep fake. And so we've been hearing the threat of deep fake video technologies with regard to political misinformation. And we're going to see some of that. I believe we're going to see a tsunami of that in the 2024 election. But there are these applications are really good at imitating real humans. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be fooled by that, run to the bank and try to pay this ransom before they realize that their daughter was at school the whole time. So one of the other things I tell people is, if you get one of those phone calls, if you get a phone call like that, the first thing you should do is hang up and turn around and try to call. And they'll tell you, don't call back, or we'll know, they'll make some sort of threat. But call them on their bluff. Immediately call back the phone of your loved one, because it could be, because they can spoof the number. They can look like it's coming in from that loved one, but they can spoof that number just like hackers do today. And so, but you should be validating that. Make sure that it's truly the loved one that called you and not a deep fake. The other thing I try to warn people about is with facial recognition. There's been a really powerful trend over the last 3 to 5 years of people using thumbprints or iris scans or facial recognition to access their telephone or their computers or other devices. Probably one of the most dangerous forms of personal identification you can use. And here's why. Any computer can be hacked, especially now with AI tools. About 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there's a company called Clearview. Now, Clearview has a business of using facial recognition to process people through airports much faster. So you can skip that long security line and you can go directly through the line by using your face. And while that's a very cool convenience for people who travel a lot. Clearview was hacked 3 or 4 years ago. 2.1 million identities were stolen and sold on the black market. Now, if somebody hacks my password, and there's been 4 billion identities stolen in the last 10 years, most of them sold on the dark web to both Russia and China, who were weaponizing them. But if somebody hacks my password, that's a pain in the butt. I have to go through all my different passwords and maybe reset them because I don't know which ones they might have hacked, especially if I'm using the same password in multiple places. But you can reset it. It's a pain. It's a loss. You might have some inconveniences. You might have some banking issues if that part of that was your banking, but you can reset it. If somebody hacks your facial identity and sells it on the black market, they can use that digital form of your face and pretend to be you anywhere. And there's no way that you're ever going to be able to reset that aspect of your identity. It's gone for good. And so technologies that we're dealing with are so powerful that they open up a lot of new doors to us. Now, I tell everybody, AI is neither, even a super intelligent AI is neither evil nor benign. It can learn to do things. It is learning from our patterns. So it is learning from our patterns of hate, our patterns of hypocrisy. It's learning that we talk about peace and then go to war. It's learning from those things. And we don't know exactly what from that it might learn. We can correct some of those things as we go, but that correction is always going to follow it becoming a problem first. But it's neither evil or benign. And we'll talk about quantum computing in a second and how that could change. But what we do know is that a powerful technology such as AI in the hands of a dictator, in the hands of a despot, in the hands of a warlord or a crime lord, I think I'm still in the show, or in the hands of a politician or even a sociopathic billionaire, could be a very, very dangerous tool when it comes to gaining more wealth and gaining more power over society. And so these are the things that we have to be aware of. Now, I've lost Chris on my visual, so I think I'm going to keep going for a minute because it's still recording. So I'm going to assume that he's still there somewhere. So Chris, are you still there? Okay, well, I'll just continue on a little bit. In 2023, 1,500 AI experts, experts in the field from all over the world, signed an open letter that was sponsored by an MIT professor named Max Tegmark. And the letter basically wanted all AI labs all over the world to pause for 6 months so that we could collectively work on the issues involved in this technology getting out of control. Both control in terms of the technology itself and how to make sure that we keep AI from getting disassociated with its goals and objectives, and how do we keep AI out of the hands of people who could turn it into a weapon on a number of levels. And unfortunately, not a single lab, government or commercial, agreed to that ban. And the reason is quite simple: money and power. The technology is moving so fast that if any company waited 6 months without developing and further developing their AI, they would lose market share. They would lose the ability to compete with somebody who had ignored the ban. And so we're dealing with, and that's what we're dealing with, both at a national level between China and the US, North Korea, Russia, Israel, and others, and at a corporate level. We're dealing with companies who are moving forward at a super rapid pace because they're concerned with not losing traction to somebody else who moves forward faster. So those are some of the key risks. They pose risks to our individual level, to our jobs, to our economy, to national security, to our ability to wage war, to our ability to conduct banking, to crime waves that could come out of this. And so AI is a very profound technology. Now, as I said, there are some benefits. I recommend to people that they get good. It's not that the technology is bad. AI will solve a number of big problems. AI will create some amazingly profound new services. Um, I use AI to create my marketing materials. There's a number of very positive and strong and proactive ways that we can use AI to make our lives more productive and to simplify tasks that we don't really want to do. It will make there will be, like we saw in the every stage of the computer age, every major evolution, there'll be hundreds of companies coming out with products. And over time, those successful products and merger and acquisitions will whittle that down to a handful of very, very wealthy and powerful companies, tech companies, who will control those technologies. And we're going to see that with artificial intelligence as well. Those companies will have tremendous power over the economy, over politics, over science, and over policymaking. And that will be good and bad to the extent that we can regulate those companies and regulate what they do. And the time for that regulation was probably 2 years ago, but it's no time like the present. We're not really in a good political environment to move some of that legislation forward, unfortunately. And so that will get delayed, and the longer we delay, the harder it will be to rein them in. I'm cautious about how much farther to go on this. There'll be positive. There you are, Chris. You
Yeah.
still there?
So yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. How can
wasn't even sure I
people?
still had you.
Yeah, really interesting. We may have you on a webinar and a future podcast session, and tell people how they can find you, follow you, reach out to you on social. Looks like you've got quite a extensive work.
Yeah, well, the first place, if you're interested in my books, is go to guymorrisbooks.com. You'll learn about the books there. You can get access to the buy links to the books. If you want an author signed copy, you can buy it from the website itself. Just look under the more category. It will also then link you. Once you've read the books, I document fact versus fiction, so you can see for yourself how much of the story is factual versus the things I made up. And maybe stretch the truth a little bit. If you're looking for me on social media, I'm on official Guy Morris Books on Facebook, Guy Morris Books on Twitter, author Guy Morris on Instagram, and Guy B. Morris on LinkedIn. I do respond to people if they want to talk about the books, and if you're interested in all of that. And I do research. I actually do a number of podcasts on artificial intelligence. I've got a press kit and a expert reel talking about AI on the website as well. I'm looking at getting booked as a television expert guest. And this is something I continue to do research on almost daily because it's moving that fast. And as much as I know, I'm always learning something new. It's a fascinating field. I've had conversations with AI CEOs and AI engineers and developers and architects. And sometimes we agree that, and sometimes, but I've always been able to basically shake their faith in the technology by talking about the things that their companies don't want to talk about. Now that I've left Microsoft, I'm free to basically have that conversation. If you're interested in other books about AI specifically, I would recommend Mo Gawdat, Gawat. Mo was the former chief business officer of Google, and he's written an amazing book called Scary Smart.
Excellent. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Guy for coming on and talking about AI. Really interesting, in depth, and all of his resources will be in the links and show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate having me.